Now, a previous video of mine has looked at converting decimals to fractions. I normally do that first. I think it's better. I think converting decimals to fractions is easier than converting fractions to decimals, although, as you'll see from this is not particularly difficult either. It's part one. So all of the fractions that we're going to be looking at have denominators of 10 or 100. Of course, you could have denominators of 1,000 or 10,000, but at year 6 level in New Zealand, we kind of focus just on the tenths and the hundredths. So let's look at this fraction here, 1/10. Good old pizza story. I have a pizza, cut it into 10 equal pieces and eat one. Now, we want to write this as a decimal fraction or a decimal. You might ask why, because very often in the real world we have to do that. We need to take things like this and change them to decimal fractions. Well, you know that we have a place for tenths. It lives just to the right of the decimal point. At this stage, you should have watched my previous videos about understanding the decimal point and about decimal place value. If you haven't, you need to do that first. So we have 1/10. Where do those tenths belong? They belong right there. So we put it in. Now, when we write numbers, we don't have this grid here, do we? So we could write just 0.1, but it's better to show that we don't have any whole numbers. We could even put a 0 in there, 0.10. And that's quite strange, isn't it? Because normally when we put a 0 on the end of a number, it looks like it gets bigger. And that only really applies with whole numbers. You can put zeros as far as the eye can see. It will still only be, although it might be called something different. If you put a 0 here, it would be called 10 hundredths, but it will still be the same amount of pizza. 10 hundredths, 1/10. I have a pizza cut into 10 equal pieces and eat one, or I have a pizza cut it into 100 equal pieces and eat 10. Same amount of pizza. And we end up having it look like 3. 0.1. Here's another example. 3 hundredths. Now again, we have a column for hundredths, don't we? It's over there. So what goes in there? 3. Now, the important thing here, or let's have a look at where do the whole numbers go? They go over there. If we take this grid away now, it's going to look like 0.3, which it isn't. We need to show that the 3 is in the hundredths column. The way we do that is by putting a 0 in the tenths column. Like that. So 3 hundredths equals 0.03. 2 and 4 tenths. Same story again, right? We are working with tenths, so pizza's been cut up to 10 equal pieces. Hopefully you guys have spotted by now those are whole pizzas. We know exactly where they go. But let's look at the tenths first. Where do the tenths go? They go there. How many do we have? 4. Put it in there. And then what goes in there? The whole pizzas. So 2 and 4 tenths is 2.4. 4 and 9 hundredths. Same again, right? This pizza was cut into 100 equal pieces and I ate 9 of them. So we're looking at hundredths. Where do we find them? There. Now guys, remember there is another column here called the thousandths, and it works just the same. This is 10 times smaller than that. So the tenths 10 times smaller, that's 10 times smaller than that, and this one would be 10 times smaller than that. So 4 9 hundredths, there the hundredths, we'll put the 9 in there. The whole pizzas go in over there. If we take this grid away, because we don't normally draw grids when we write numbers, it would take us forever. We would need to show that this 9 is not next to the decimal point, and the way we show that is by putting a 0 in there. So 4 9 hundredths is 4.09 as a decimal fraction, or a decimal. 3 and 17 hundredths, same thing. Oh, now this is a little bit different. We have 7/100ths, and we have, that's not 1/100th, is it? That's 10/100ths. How much is 10/100ths? It's actually the same as 1/10th. But we just think of this 7. It's 17/100ths. The 7 represents 7/100ths. So where would the 7 go? The 7 goes in the hundredths column. Right, so hundredths column, 7 there. Now, the 10/10, the 10/100ths, if you had a 1 here and a 0 here, it would be 10/100ths, wouldn't it? So the 1 just goes there. And then the whole numbers is easy. That's 3.17. So 3 and 17/100ths is 3.17 as a decimal. Now, we're going to do 30 of these. And I suggest that you rather pause between each one and do your best rather than try and rush through them. It's important that you stop and think about what you're doing. You will see that as you become more confident, you will be able to answer them really quickly. So here we go. 1 and 4/100ths, pause, continue when ready. 1.04. If you got that wrong, go back to the beginning of the video and watch it again before you carry on. Or if you know why you got it wrong, you did something silly, that's fine. 6/10ths, pause and continue when ready. 0.6. 6/10ths, 6 in the tenths column, which we did have here earlier in the video, but it's not there anymore. 1 and 7/100ths, pause, continue. 1.07, 1 whole pizza, 1 whole pizza. A pizza that was cut into 100, and I had 7 slices. 7/100ths, where are the hundredths? These are the tenths, there are the hundredths. 17/100ths, pause and continue. 0.17. 3 and 5/10ths, pause, continue when ready. 3.5. But I'm not going to keep telling you to pause from now on. When I read the fraction, you just automatically pause if you need to. Some of you may not need to. 1 and 11/100ths. 1.11. There's the 1 whole pizza there. 1/100th of a pizza there, and 10/100ths. That's the 1/100th. This would be the 10/100ths. Well, 10/100ths would give you 1/10th, and that would go there. And you should understand by now that 10/100ths and 1/10th are called equivalent fractions. 4 and 1/100th. Think carefully about this one. 4.01. 2 and 9/10ths. 2.9. 8 and 9/100ths. 8.09. 7 and 77/100ths. 7.77. 7/10ths. 0.7. 3 and 3/100ths. 3.03. 91 hundredths, 0.91, 8 and 8 hundredths, 8.08, 2 and 22 hundredths, 2.22, 3 tenths, 0.3, 30 hundredths, 0.30, and you could also just put it as 0.3. The two fractions are different. That is 30 hundredths. That is 3 tenths, but 30 hundredths and 3 tenths are equivalent. You could have put a 0 on the end here and you would have had 300 thousandths. But as I said earlier in the video, we don't really worry about the thousandths too much for this part of the maths curriculum. So 4 and 74 hundredths, 4.74, 16 and 61 hundredths, 16.61, 8 and 92 hundredths, 8.92. Right, now we worked with mixed numbers in the previous examples. We're going to be working with improper fractions now. Now you should have at this stage looked at my video, which is called, well, there are two. One is changing improper fractions to mixed numbers, and one's changing mixed numbers to improper fractions. However, if you haven't, you can still carry on. You should be able to work these out. I haven't done any of these in the video so far, but I did that intentionally because I need you to do some thinking here. So if we look at 17 tenths, what is that going to be as a decimal fraction? Now, there are two ways of doing this. You could either change 17 tenths to a mixed number or mixed fraction and then do it, or you can just think carefully about it. Where does that 7 go? Where does the 1 go? But I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. You can pause if you like. Otherwise, I'll just continue from here. And the answer is that the 7 tenths means the 7 goes in the tenths column. This pizza was cut into 10 pieces. I ate 17, so I had a whole pizza and 7 slices. 105 hundredths. Again, I'm not going to tell you to pause every time. I will just assume that you do it if you need to. 1.05. 123 hundredths. 1.23. 215 hundredths. 2.15. 65 tenths. 6.5. 706 hundredths. 7.06. 23 tenths. 2.3. 234 tenths. Think carefully about this one. 23.4. Remember the 4 tenths. The 4 must go in the tenths column. 97 tenths. 9.7. 407 hundredths, 4.07. So if that all made sense to you and you feel really, really confident, well done. If not, go through the examples again or watch the tutorial at the beginning again. If you watch it a few times, I think you will absolutely master it. It's really important as well because when we start working with percentages, you really need to understand this particular video. Have fun.